Hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. I've been fairly quiet about the whole quarantining and everything recently because I felt that I had got to a point where I was satisfied with my research. But in trying to share this research of what I consider to be frontline thinking of where things are at, I've been surprised and a little disappointed by the total silence in the receptiveness of those that I would have expected to be receptive. People who are quite aware of the skullduggery that is going on, and when you put forward this possibility, there's total silence. And I wondered about that. I've been watching medical people all over the planet. There's tens of thousands of medical people that are coming out and stating the lies that are being perpetrated. Yet, in all of the tens of thousands of medical staff, I've really only seen one who has actually talked about exosomes. And this was the one doctor that I was initially introduced to exosomes. Then ensued all of the study that I did, and I thought, wow, this is revolutionary. This is what the world needs to know. And this is what the medical profession needs to know to get their facts straight. But unfortunately, that has not happened, and I've wondered why. Then I stumbled across, I was doing some searching, and a term that popped up was germ theory denialists. And so I followed that link, thinking it's always good to see the other side of the argument, to see what things are being put forward, the arguments against you, to see how valid they are. And sure enough, this article, very long, very involved, with lots of information in there, all aimed at discrediting this one medical person. Now, as I've stated in other videos previously, in order to do real science, proper science, you need to be brutally honest with yourself and with others, I suppose. You need to gather as much information as you can on a subject, understand it, and only then when you understand it can you make any wise conclusions. This article on germ theory denialism was a very good display of ignorance. This person did your classic throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They were basically stating that if you conclude that these particles that are causing all the quarantining are actually exosomes, you are denying germ theory. That is a load of rot. The problem is that these people that say that a person like myself is denying germ theory are denying germ theory worse themselves. We do not deny germ theory. What we want to do is improve our understanding of germ theory. We fully agree with large amounts of germ theory, but like with any scientific field, there's going to be error, there's going to be wrong hypotheses and wrong conclusions, and we need to be constantly, brutally, honestly adjusting our thinking. And this is all that we are asking. We are not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and denying germ theory. We are saying, let's improve our understanding of germ theory. The article basically went back to what they considered to be the beginnings of germ theory with Louis Pasteur and another scientist of his time. Louis Pasteur discovered that bacteria exist. We totally agree with that. This other scientist was stating that our well-being and our health was more dependent, or very dependent, on the ambience or the whole area of our body. And At the time, Louis Pasteur got more fame because he had obviously discovered bacteria and it was important to deal with them. And this other person was discredited or sort of shouted down because he was saying that not only are there bacteria, but it is more important, he was saying more important probably, that we keep our body in a situation that is able to fend for itself. He was then sort of shoved off to the side and germ theory continued. Now, Louis Pasteur came in quite a long time after the investigations into inoculations and all those sorts of things, and a lot of germ theory, and after the small particles we're talking about were invented, as you might say, in a shamanistic sort of way, invented to try and explain the unexplainable. And we've had at least 50 years or more, 50 to 100 years of that shamanistic thinking without real evidence to fully prove it. We're now finding that the proof is indicating that those suppositions were entirely wrong. Now, getting back to the other guy was saying that our entire body is important. He was not actually wrong. The person that wrote this article was unable to reconcile the 2 points of view as being actually part of the same point of view. It is entirely possible to have bacteria, because they exist. You can see them under a microscope, you can study them, you can see their actions, their intention, everything about them. But they're now finding more and more that this other scientist was actually right. Our whole entire body and our system and its state of well-being fully influences our well-being, basically. What they're finding now, for example, is that well over, let's see, we have to get the calculations here. So in some of the research I've been looking at, scientists are stating that we, in our body, have a 10-to-1 ratio outnumbering our own cells by bacteria. In other words, there are 10 times the number of bacteria living in our body. That's our intestine. 70% of them are in our intestine, and the other 30% are actually inside our blood vessels and the cells in our brain and all over the place. 30% of those are bacteria. They are not even us. We are outnumbered 10 bacteria to every one of our cells. The difference is that the size of the bacteria is so small that they are only 1% of our volume compared to the 9. So 10 times as many bacteria occupy only a 1/100th of the space of our cells. And then others will say, well, let's balance it out. In some ways, we are something like 49%, I don't know where they get that number from, but 49% of our body are actually not our body, they're bacteria. Now, in order to have so many bacteria in your body, they've identified, for example, 700 different bacteria from your teeth down to your butt that constantly live in our system, in our digestive tract. In fact, most of those bacteria are there to actually help us. They are good, they are not negative. When I looked up the statistics for what sort of bacteria are harmful to man, the majority of bacteria are in the soil or in the sea, and only about 1% of the bacteria that they have studied can actually do any harm to a human being. And of all those 99%, many of those are actually beneficial to us. As I say, well over 700 bacteria live in our digestive tract and contribute to our well-being. And of the what was it, 10 to 1? 30% of those at least live inside our body, doing jobs for our body on behalf of our body. So when you have bacteria that are living, crawling all over you, inside you, around you, all over the place, you need systems that are going to control those. The bacteria that cause pneumonia, that has been in the news lots over the last year or two, actually live there permanently. They're there all the time. It's just that when you get a cold, your body, your system that regulates all these things and controls them is out of whack, and they start to multiply extraordinarily and badly until you have such an invasion of these bacteria multiplied that you have a pneumonia, and if you don't do something about it, they can eventually kill you. Now, they haven't really figured out the relationship between these two on a general level. We have heaps of bacteria that assist our body, and we need those bacteria. And when you start spraying antibacterial and everything all over you and trying to get rid of all the bacteria, you're doing yourself harm. By trying to get rid of the bad bacteria, you're getting rid of the good bacteria as well. Now, getting back to the denialist thing, this is to illustrate that the basis of this person's analysis in their article was that those that say that these particles that are causing all the trouble are exosomes, they then say we don't believe anything about bacteria. We say, of course we do. We understand it better than you do, in fact. You'll understand that we need bacteria, and just like Louis Pasteur said that yes, bacteria exist, this other scientist was 100% right as well. The two of them were correct. There are bacteria, and it is vitally important to maintain the ecosystem in your body so that that bacterial community works to its best. Now, once you understand that, you broaden your thinking to understand germ theory in a wider perspective. And then when you are open enough to that, you have to realize that all of these nasty particle things we're talking about has been pure speculation. I've been spending this time of quietness over the last few months just going through each of the plagues that we have supposedly had, starting way back with smallpox and the bubonic plague and all of those. And it's very interesting because in every single case, if you dig deep enough and get past the the official narrative of the day and start digging, you find that in every single case there was no proof of these particles. There almost invariably were bacteria, fungi, and parasites, and all sorts of, or electromagnetism and various other different maladies that caused these sicknesses. And none of them have ever been proved to have these particles. And so to say that we are denialists of germ theory is just mind-blowing, because in actual fact we understand bacterial germ theory better than these people, because you have a wider view to say that we don't know everything about the bacteria that have been causing these things. For example, smallpox came from horses originally, and all of the poxes, chickenpox, smallpox, and all those ones, measles, they're all from the same family. They're an allergic reaction by exosomes and such like to a bacteria that has come in, and they eventually figured out that that was it. The Spanish flu of 1919 around there, that was also bacterial. The bubonic plague was bacterial. Everything's bacterial. Even hepatitis, they say, oh, that's, if you look at the major narrative, they say it's always a, when you look at it, they have never ever proved or found these particles that are supposed to be causing hepatitis. And they're so confused that they thought it was hepatitis, just hepatitis. But then they had to say, oh, there's A, then there's B, then there's C, then there's D, now there's E. There's 5 different kinds, and none of them have been proven to have these particles or be caused by these particles. Because when you think about it, these particles are just little packets of information. They have no life, no mitochondria, no decision making, no power of anything. They don't think, they are not intelligent, they're just packages. They're like pieces of photocopied paper floating around your system with instructions. So this helps to explain a little bit why the silence and no reaction basically to anything that I have tried to share in this concerning exosomes to those who are basically in the know but who still can't even handle that. It's a tactic to basically prevent the world finding out and adjusting their germ theory. They are immediately going to discredit anybody that figures out that these particles are actually exosomes and that the real culprits of these sicknesses are a multitude of things: bacteria, fungi, parasites, and electromagnetism, stress, and a whole bunch of other things. And they are too lazy to investigate those things, and it's a lot easier to blame some scapegoat, which basically is helping. And it also gives the evil people of this world the possibility of using exosomes basically to destroy us by totally messing up our system and our bodily functions by giving our body false information and false instructions so that our system goes haywire and we die off and hopefully, in their eyes, reduce the world population. Sounds drastic, but that's basically what it is. So there we are. Germ theory denialism. Those that basically say that there are the germ theory denialists are actually germ theory denialists themselves, ignoring real, solid information on a scientific, brutally honest level.